We'll be at these for just a few minutes. We got a couple on the way up. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Got a couple of speakers that'll be coming in from the Senate as soon as it gets done. I think we've got who all we got online on Zoom. Let's see.
Chairman Ridley, Chuck Martin's here.
All right, Chuck Martin, Jenny Earhart, are you on Zoom? So this is.
I'm here. Sorry. Yes, I'm here.
All right, Representative Bennett, you on there?
Here, yes.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. This is we're having, let's see here. House Bill 998, Chairman Carpenter.
You ready? All right, perfect. Just so everybody's familiar, we're working off of LC 365229S. And basically what's happened since we left here from our last hearing is there's been some changes as this bill's evolved in the Senate and on the House side about a few exclusions that I want to go over. But at the end of the day, this bill is about protecting consumers and their ability to use tickets and have options to resell them. Currently, the current model is Ticketmaster / Live Nation controls 85% of the primary ticket market. There's now a trend for them with new technology to start controlling that secondary market, which would mean they would control 85% of the secondary market. And I think as a Georgia consumer, as a representative of Georgians, that's a big concern, not to allow Georgia consumers to have options to do with what they want with their tickets. You're going to hear a lot of speakers today talk about if you pass this bill, then certain acts are not going to come to Georgia. They're not going to play in Georgia. And that's just simply not true. They have this law in other states, Colorado to be Virginia, and all these acts that are saying they wouldn't come to Georgia are going to play in those states. So I think that is a selling of fear that is simply just not true. You're also going to hear from a lot of the big pro teams today, and they're going to say that this is a bad bill. And I just want to say, if we're going to do what we do to help sports teams build stadiums with public money, and then we're going to allow them to control what Georgians do with their tickets after, I think that's a problem. I think that, we're socializing the cost of building these stadiums, allowing them to privatize those profits. And when the profits aren't enough, we're allowing them to go deeper into the rights of Georgians to make more money. And hopefully, as you hear through this, you'll be able to sense that this is strictly a money grab for the stadiums. And it's at the expense of choices for the consumer, usage rights for the consumer. And I think it's a bad thing what we're seeing. All right, so just a few exclusions you see in section 1. We added some civic groups to the exclusion. So if a show / event wants to provide tickets to these certain groups at a discounted rate and make them non-transferable, they are excluded. So that's charitable institutions, religion institutions, civic leagues, veterans, students, or groups, individuals characterized by a disability or an economic hardship. We've also excluded NCAA collegiate events. There was some pushback from the University of Georgia, and we felt like that was a reasonable ask from an important group in the state of Georgia. Obviously, what you see below that is how we're defining non-transferable tickets. And basically it's saying, look, if you're going to sell a non-transferable ticket, if it's not to one of these groups, then you're going to have to offer that same ticket as transferable. We're not discussing if you can change the price on that or not, but we're just saying you have to allow Georgia consumers to be able to transfer their tickets under normal circumstances. At the end of the day, you keep going on through. It also talks about not locking consumers into an ecosystem. You'll hear from folks today that are going to talk about once you get in that Ticketmaster ecosystem, without legislation, you're going to start getting trapped in there. And that's going to be your only option for getting rid of your tickets. So there'll be no StubHub. There'll be no Vivid Seats. There'll be no Seat Geeks. You know, this is a fairly competitive market where, you know, and competition brings the cost down for consumers over the long haul, and it also provides better customer service. So that's a major issue, is them getting caught in that ticket ecosystem. And then at the end of the day, the last part that's super important is 68 through 70. And it basically says if I sell my tickets to an individual or transfer them to an individual, they can't be denied access to that event. So if they get there and they don't have Ticketmaster on their phone, that ticket should be able to be scannable. And the technology is there to make sure that's the ability to do that. But there's just been certain incidents around the United States where that's occurred, and it's important to address that as well. And I'll be glad to yield for any questions.
I don't have any questions. At this time, I think.
Chairman Ridley.
Yes, you got a question?
Representative Martin. Were we mailed, for those of us that are virtual, is it possible to get PDF of the sub the gentleman's speaking from?
Well, that's kind of the issue I had Friday, because we didn't have the sub yet for anybody, and we just got it. Yeah, Jan's going to do that right now, so we'll just, you want to just set it these till she gets those to y'all?
No. That's carry on with the testimony. I'll just, if she's going to do that, I'll look for the email. Thank you.
Okay, all right. And Representative Bennett, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a question, and thank you, Representative, for that explanation. Actually, I have two questions. One, you mentioned, I want to understand the difference in how tickets are being sold now versus the proposed amendment. You did a great job in explaining it, but I got lost in when Chairman Ridley, or you mentioned 85% of one market and then 85% of the other market. That kind of threw me. So I guess I'm wanting to understand what's the difference in the way tickets are being sold and transferred now versus what your bill will allow.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So what that 85% means is Ticketmaster controls 85% of the primary ticket sales in the United States. So what that means is if I go to the Atlanta Falcons and I buy a ticket, it's a Ticketmaster ticket. All right. But with new technology, the current trend is to make, if I decide to give my ticket away, sell my ticket, as technology is changing, it is becoming apparent that Ticketmaster wants to control that second sale / transfer of that ticket. And that's what this bill looks to circumvent. It looks to say, look, if the consumer wants to buy that primary ticket from Ticketmaster and sell that ticket through StubHub or Vivid Seats, then he should be allowed to do so. And that you shouldn't use new technology to limit his ability or her ability to do that. Does that make sense?
It does. And may I ask the second question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So under this,
That's my job.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought
Yes, ma'am, you can go right ahead.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. So under the proposed change, would StubHub and those other markets be able to purchase the tickets directly themselves from Ticketmaster, or would they be able to go to the primary source, which would be the entertainers or whoever?
I don't know that there's a lot of that where StubHub actually goes in and buys tickets. They may do that a little bit, but the majority of it is individuals or ticket brokers that buy these tickets and then turn around and resell them. So it's more of a marketplace. StubHub is more of a marketplace than it is, involved in the interminglings of those tickets. I think that happens in some rare occasions, but not on 99% of the time. It's literally just a marketplace that provides Georgia consumers with a place to sell or their tickets.
May I ask, Mr. Chairman, one last question?
Yes, ma'am, go right ahead.
You just mentioned ticket brokers, so that raised another question. Are the ticket brokers currently engaging in this market? And do we anticipate that with HB 998, there will be a proliferation of ticket brokers getting these?
No, I don't think so. They are engaged in it. to an extent, and they'll continue to be engaged in it, and they'll be engaged in it whether it's just through Ticketmaster's platform. I don't think that piece is going to change. They're not going to be more apt to do it or more or less apt to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To follow up, Ms. Bennett, with one of your questions that you asked, currently in the state of Georgia, who owns the ticket when it's sold?
Well, there's perception and there's reality. And so
Well,
the
what's the
perception
fact?
is when I buy a ticket, that's my ticket. The teams will come up here in a minute and tell us that it is a revocable license to use. But I would say that this bill would address the usage rights of that ticket, whether it's my property or a revocable license. I think consumers still should have usage rights. And so that's what we call it is beside the point of whether or not we provide Georgia consumers with some usage rights or not, or protect those usage rights.
But under current law, it's the whoever's selling the ticket, they still own the ticket, right?
That's
And
the
that you
contention.
don't address that in the bill at all, do you?
I don't think
change
that doesn't
that.
change. It doesn't change it. No,
Okay.
no, that piece doesn't change.
Okay.
I mean, because
and-
we can call it whatever we want to, right? But I think when our constituents buy a ticket, they feel like it's their ticket. Now, if it's legally theirs or not, they still feel like they should have some rights with that.
All right, got another question, Chairman Hawkins.
I thought this was an easy subject a couple of weeks ago.
Me too.
Further we go down the road, the more confusing it gets. Right now, if you buy a Falcons ticket, can you resell that ticket?
Yes.
Okay. If you buy a concert ticket and it's not on the ticket, non-transferable, you can sell that ticket too.
That's correct.
So I'm a little confused on what we're solving with this bill.
Sure. I can understand your concern. What we're seeing is that where it's going. And so technology is changing at a rapid pace.
Okay.
And Ticketmaster has instituted what's called a revolving barcode. All right. And so what that does is every 15 minutes, that barcode's updated and it's different. And so what they're doing by this is they're making it a challenge for me to be able to resell that ticket on other platforms other than Ticketmaster. So essentially, they're going to, what I would be called, lock you into that ecosystem where you, as a consumer, don't have options to choose StubHub, Vivid Seat, or anybody else because it becomes increasingly more difficult to sell that ticket outside of that ecosystem.
So they're doing that now?
Yeah. And it's coming more and more every day. And it's all under the veil of protection.
So if I buy some Falcon tickets and I can't go and I want my kids to go, I can't transfer that from my phone to their phone?
You
for them to
can.
use? Okay.
Mhm.
If it's a concert, I can. But what you're saying is in the future, that may be shut down.
That's exactly right. So for instance, I bought tickets to the Rolling Stones concert at Mercedes-Benz. And that ticket was not, when I bought it, nobody said anything about it not being able to transfer that ticket.
Right.
We'll come to find out they had a block on it and you couldn't transfer that ticket until a week out.
Without your knowledge.
Well, nobody told me.
Hmm.
So I'm sure they say it, but when I bought I've got season tickets to Falcons. So I usually buy every concert that comes on there. That was never discussed. And then I realized when I tried to send them to somebody, I couldn't send them.
They didn't know who they were messing with, did they?
No, I wouldn't go that far. There's some bigger wigs about to talk to you than me, I can assure you.
And Chuck, Chairman Martin, are you online? You got a question?
I am. Thank you, Chairman Ridley. So, Chairman Carpenter, so this is what I think you just addressed the concern that I have and why it concerns with me of locking into an ecosystem. I mean, basically, we're creating, or there is being created a de facto monopoly. Is that not what's happening here?
I would agree with that.
And what worries me with that, it goes back to Chairman Hawkins' question about the transfer. And I'll try Chairman Ridley to make this a question. But I also want to make a point is I had tickets to a football game this fall that I could have put, had they been paper tickets, I could have put them in a FedEx envelope and mailed them to my son in Charlotte to use. And he would have gotten them the next day and been able to use them. But I was locked out of being able to transfer them within 3 or 4 days of the game, just because they decided they couldn't be transferred. And that is, I don't think the average person understands that, that's what's going on with their ticket. That could be a limitation with any other platform, but that's problematic. So let me get to the question here more specifically, is if you have a ticket, Chairman Carpenter, that the pro team, the college team, the concert doesn't mind you reselling, the current format that would say you call it a revolving barcode on the single platform would allow you, let's just assume it would allow you to sell that, but there's no regulation on the fee they would or could charge you to sell that ticket, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And I don't think anybody in this room that's going to speak today would be for addressing those fees. And they can always talk about, this is making tickets go up, et cetera, but at the end of the day, if you bring up capping a fee, every one of them are going to run from the door, because this is an illustration of a money grab and trying to lock you in financially into that ecosystem for not only the markup but also the data.
Well, my concern is if we're allowing them to capture, if we're allowing them to not let a owner of the license, I guess is what we'd call it now. If the ticket's not truly it belongs to me, at least it is a license I have acquired from the promoter or the vendor or the team. And if they're requiring me to use a particular vendor to transfer that license, I guess they could, if I'm going to use that through a mechanism that's going to get compensation, I'm tied into paying the fee of their preferred vendor, not mine.
Yep, that's correct.
If I just want to send it to somebody, I can do that for free today. But is there anything in Georgia law that prohibits them from just plain charging me a fee to transfer that ticket down the road?
I don't believe there is.
So we could, if we get single platform, if we allow the platform to become stronger, and they just decide if they want to, if you download the ticket one time and you want to not use that phone, you want to use another phone, even if you're transferring, if you will, to yourself. Once it's downloaded, that you have to, they could charge you a fee just for touching their ecosystem, as you're referred to it, and we wouldn't have an opportunity. We wouldn't have another option. I mean, it's just not an opportunity. We wouldn't have another option.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
That's good for now. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We've got people to talk, and I think they can answer a lot of these questions. We got first, we got Laura Dooley with StubHub.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Laura Dooley. I'm with StubHub. We are a resale ticket marketplace. We were founded in 2000, and over the past 22 years have really helped revolutionize the ticketing resale market. So much so that today the debate really is not about is resale good or bad. It's about who should control it. And I would stipulate that later today from some of the opponents of this bill, you may hear the phrase scalping being used, that these scalpers want to get their hands on tickets in order to resale. And I'll tell you this, that scalping is actually quite an antiquated notion. 46 states, including the state of Georgia, allow for tickets to be resold at the market rate, given certain parameters that are put into place. The opponents that we've heard speak on this bill all enable resale to occur on their platforms. So if you think of the term scalping and you think it's just the resale of tickets, I would stipulate that everyone today is involved in that process. And so we're all part of this world. The value or the ability for customers to make their own decisions is what we're talking about today. House Bill 998 is really quite simple. Again, it's not about resale being good or bad. It's about who should be in control of it. We believe that by inserting the choice to always buy a ticket that's freely transferable gives consumers the power to decide what to do with the product that they've purchased. StubHub's business interests in this case certainly align with the consumer interest, because if they have choice, we can compete in a free and open market and on a level playing field. Absent that choice, we fear that the use of technology to close the moat around tickets that are sold for the first time by one entity is a real thing. And it's something that we deal with every day right now. It's happening quite frequently across major sports teams. It's our #1 customer service call. Where's my ticket? Why can't I get it? Because I'm sorry, you have to go back through the primary ticketing company that sold it. So at the end of the day, we would again just say that we think this is a great bill. We think it's pro-consumer. We certainly think it preserves a free market. It doesn't prohibit technology. It doesn't prohibit the use of transferable tickets. It actually just creates an option around non-transferable tickets if that's what the consumer wants. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, I got a couple for you.
Of course.
Are y'all a registered broker in the state of Georgia?
One of our subsidiaries has been a registered broker in Georgia in the past. I'm not sure if we currently are. It just depends on if we're acting in that capacity. I don't believe we are right now.
Okay, because I heard you in the Senate say that y'all were not registered as a broker.
They
in the state.
didn't ask that specific question if we were registered as a broker. They asked if we were in the business of buying tickets directly from teams and selling them. We have been in the past. And when we've done that, we've registered accordingly. When we're certainly acting as just a marketplace, marketplaces aren't required to register in the state.
Okay, but y'all sell tickets. Y'all got a partnership with the Braves and some others.
We have, we're the official resale partnership of the Braves. We work with a couple other entities in Georgia as well, where we are the encouraged resale marketplace of that entity.
Okay, so if y'all are reselling, then are y'all not selling based on that for the Braves? So why would y'all not have to be registered as a broker?
Because we're not the seller of record. We're the platform by which tickets are sold. Those people selling on our platform are either consumers, season ticket holders, and sometimes brokers themselves. But at this point in time, I don't believe that we have an inventory position with the Braves.
Okay.
And I can certainly clarify that.
And who all are y'all partners with now?
Partners in Georgia, we're
Yes.
partners with the Braves, we're partners with UGA. We have a partnership with Fox Theater. I believe we might be partners with Georgia State as well. I will make sure and get that full list back to you.
So you're opposed, your own partners are opposed to what y'all are trying to do?
We are, and it's unfortunate, and we understand, that it's a tough time. I think we have different philosophies on how tickets should be resold. From our perspective, a free and open market makes the most sense. It is quite common in our industry to have partnerships with one platform and one platform only. We don't use technology to restrict customers from selling off of our platform, even when we have a partnership. But we believe that, our industry is becoming so monopolized. It's important for us to ask and to seek public policy changes to make sure that consumers have choice. And so because of that, we're willing to go against our partners who want to limit consumer choice and control resale from start to finish.
I don't know if that's a good business plan, but okay. Who had a question? You good? Okay. All right. Well,
Thank you for your time.
question. Thank you. All right. Let's see here. Next, we got Earl Earhart with Atlanta Braves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be here on this side of the microphone. I do represent the Atlanta Braves, and we've heard some interesting claims here. Just as a matter of record, the Senate committee just do not pass on this particular measure, just for your edification. We heard a little bit about the free and open market. I get a really interesting disconnect when I hear a group coming to the House of Representatives wanting the government to intervene so that they can help their business, and then they claim free market. That sounds like a government market, and they're trying to get a little help from the government with their market. I wanted to point that out. You do have a letter in your folders, or you should add one of these from the Atlanta Braves, Atlanta Falcons, Atlanta Hawks, and the Atlanta United, and they're all against this particular measure. I don't want to belabor those points, but there's certainly no justification that allows a third party who lacks any long-term commitment to the state. You ask a good question, Mr. Chairman. The right to dictate the terms and conditions of what the Atlanta Braves or any of these other businesses do in their venues. We've had that license on the ticket for many, many years. It is a revocable license for good reason. The safety and security of the fans, for one. If you can't turn off a ticket for somebody who's done a criminal act in your stadium, and you just give that ability to one of these ticket scalpers, and yes, they're scalpers. They may be, it's lipstick on a pig, folks. It's, used to be the guy with a cigar box sitting on the back with the cash in there. Now they're big technology companies. And that kind of gets to what's been said about Ticketmaster. Ticketmaster is a vendor for these sports teams. 85% of the tickets, yeah, they belong to the sports teams and the venues and those in this ecosystem all across the country. They use Ticketmaster as their electronic IT guys to push those tickets out. They're not brokering the tickets. They're not selling the tickets. And there's no fee on there. This is a solution chasing a problem that doesn't exist. It's not there. The idea that I love this consumer concept. It's never, if something has a value of about $15 and the value is set by who's selling it. Let's just say if I got a $50 ticket to a Braves game, and that's what the value is, that's the market value. But if it's a very popular Braves game or a concert and it gets in the hands of one of these scalpers and you get it for $500, how's that a consumer deal? When I read Consumer Reports, they don't tell me how I can go in and pay a 5,000% markup and tell me that's a great consumer deal. So they're a little bit off on that particular concept of consumerism. The safety of these, you're going to hear from some others. They're going to talk about this concept of not allowing NCAA events to be covered under this. And folks, that's a winner and loser proposition, and I'll let them speak to the legality of that. That's not something that would stand up in court. I just want to ask you, please don't support these teams, these venues. They're Georgia companies. There's tens of thousands of jobs. The safety and security of their venues are important, and they're not somebody from out of town trying to get a government crutch to help them with their business model. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
For you, number 20, Chairman Hawkins.
I'll ask you the same question I asked Representative Carpenter. If I buy a Braves ticket, can I resell it?
Yes, you can.
I'm not really sure what we're trying to fix here then.
That's a solution chasing a problem that doesn't exist.
I just feel like, when I spoke to the representatives of StubHub, I must admit, what they said sounded very credible, and that is when I buy the ticket, I own the ticket. But somehow, in some of these discussions, it sounds like I don't. I do believe that a concert promoter or the band or the Braves, if they want to sell a certain amount of non-transferable tickets, it's free world. They ought to be able to do that too. But I think if I buy a ticket, it ought to be on there somewhere. I cannot resell it. And that way I can determine for myself whether I'm going to buy that ticket. Frankly, with 12 grandchildren, I don't know where I'm going to be 2 weeks from now. And if I buy a ticket, I'd like for one of my kids to enjoy it.
I certainly agree with you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Earhart. I don't think
Thank you.
any more questions for you. All right, next, Bruce Morris with Ticket Network.
Mr. Chairman, I did have my electronic hand up. I don't know,
Oh, okay. Well,
would Mr. Earhart,
go ahead.
would you allow him to come back?
Yes, sir. Hang on. Get him back up here. All right, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hey, thank you, Mr. Earhart. Thanks for coming back. I had my electronic hand up, just missed you. All right, so my question is this. If Ticketmaster is I don't care if it's Ticketmaster or StubHub, if there's a sole platform on which a pro team, and you represent the Braves, so we'll use them, not to make them a hero or a villain, but if there's a sole platform to do that, and I buy a license for a ticket, and I want to sell the ticket, would you not agree that it's absolutely true that whatever fee they're going to charge me to sell that ticket, I have to pay?
Right now, there is no fee for I transfer my Ticketmaster tickets to business clients and
I didn't say
Others-
transfer, I said sell though.
sell.
Do they not have a marketplace for Ticketmaster?
The Ticketmaster is only the electronic platform. It is they're not a ticket broker like,
So they don't have a marketplace. Oh, well, that's what I'm,
they're not a broker. No, sir. They're not a scalper. They work for the venue and the teams.
okay. Well, I mean, you can say scouting. I don't
And you
like,
can resell them. No,
Yeah.
there's no bar to that. That's the part where we're talking about that it's a solution that is chasing a non-existent problem, and there's no fee for it right now.
okay. So I'm asking because I'm trying to understand this. So
Sure.
Ticketmaster, when you say you can sell them through Ticketmaster, Ticketmaster allows you to accomplish the transfer, but they don't help you with the transaction. So they don't guarantee the transaction like some of these other platforms do.
No, sir, that's correct.
Okay. So if you had a ticket, the example I used when I was asking Chairman Carpenter, if I purchased a ticket, which is a license to attend an event out of town and was unable to get there, and I wanted to transfer that to somebody I knew up there or a relative, and they were going to compensate me for the ticket, there would be no way for Ticketmaster to facilitate. I could transfer it through Ticketmaster, but I would have to have faith in the person that I was selling the ticket to send me the money.
Truly, that's the actual free market. I transfer tickets at the last minute to Braves games and others at the very last minute. If somebody can't come because they're stuck in traffic and somebody else can make it to the game, the Ticketmaster platform that Major League Baseball has allows me to transfer that ticket up to time after the game starts, and they don't charge anything for that. And if I were to want to sell one of those tickets to somebody, I'd be allowed to do that, but it'd be a personal transaction between me and that seller.
Okay, so so that's what I'm trying to get to. So if a license holder, to have a full and free market to sell the ticket to, if they had an event they couldn't get to, and they wanted to sell that, and they're selling it to somebody they don't know, if they're selling it for the same price they paid, and they wanted to have a market to facilitate that, if they could only use Ticketmaster, they wouldn't have that available to them today, correct?
If that is the company that the Braves or the Falcons or anybody else uses for their electronic platform that allows transfers, that'd must be like saying, well, in times previous, if you couldn't go up to the window at the Braves stadium and actually buy a ticket or a will call or that, but you wanted to do it down the street, that it would be inconvenient to do it down the street. We the government would need to get involved in that. But I'm
just trying to get you say we're chasing a problem or a solution that's not a problem. I mean, is it not true there are thousands of people that use these various platforms? I don't know, Seat Geeks, StubHub, Vivid Tickets, whatever, that to transfer to as a marketplace. I mean, 20 years ago nobody bought anything on eBay. But there are thousands of people who are doing that. And yet today with a Braves ticket, I couldn't use StubHub, correct?
StubHub sells Braves tickets all the time. I've
But
bought tickets for all kinds of venues on StubHub. Nobody's saying that StubHub can't utilize their platform to.
Can I sell a Braves ticket I own through StubHub today?
Yes. StubHub says they have relationships with these vendors, with these teams. They just testified to that.
Okay, I'll follow up further with that. I'm aware of a situation where I've purchased a ticket that had a license and was trying to transfer that ticket, to sell the ticket, to be honest, for the price I paid for it, not making a dime, not scalping, just get it in the hands of somebody that could use it. But I wasn't, didn't know I wasn't going to give them the ticket. And I had to work an arrangement because I could not get that ticket outside the Ticketmaster ecosystem. So it was kind of, very much a trust situation with the person, over the phone. And if it could have, isn't it true? If I could have gotten it outside the ecosystem, we would have had a more secure transit. That's what I'm trying to.
I'm not aware of
here.
I understand, Representative, and I'm not aware of your personal situation with that ticket, but that's.
Well,
really-
it's my personal situation and several 100,000, a day to various college events and pro events. But I'm just trying to understand. Thank you for the question or answering the question.
All right, thank you. We need to kind of move on, so let's kind of keep this short if we can. Representative Bennett, do you have a question?
I did, but I'm kind of like Chairman Hawkins. The more we discuss it, it seems like the more I don't understand it. So
Okay.
currently, a consumer is able to transfer and or sell their ticket by going outside of the Ticketmaster market only. Is that correct?
That's the way we understand it. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
All right, next, Bruce Morse. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Bruce Morrison, Director of Government Affairs for Ticket Network, a secondary marketplace located in the state of Connecticut. But moreover, I'd like to testify today in a former position, the position before I'm doing right now, which is I'm formerly the Deputy Speaker for the Connecticut House of Representatives, retired in 2017. 2017 is when the state of Connecticut passed its transferability ticket law. So I want to share with you the experience because I know it's the experience that you're having right now. I remember very well 2015 and 16 and 14. I remember very well having Ticketmaster and everyone else pulling on one side and venues that we knew very well, saying, listen, the world is going to end if you pass this bill. It's the worst thing that happened. This is for scalpers. It's only for them. Then on the other side, I had those from consumer protection advocates and the platforms themselves saying, if it's your money, you bought it, shouldn't you be able to resell it? Shouldn't you be able to do whatever you want to do with it? If you can't go to an event, most of these venues, you can't get a cancellation fee. So you've got to go sell it back on that platform or just lose your money. I said, no, that's crazy. I wouldn't go for that. So I supported the bill, but I want to tell you what happened with the experience. It became almost volatile because everyone's so passionate with what they wanted to do and say. So the state of Connecticut said, listen, let our Department of Consumer Protection take a look and study this. Well, it was a study that didn't die. At the end of the day, it came back and talked about what was good and what was bad for either side. And the Connecticut legislature decided to make a decision that was one like Solomon. Deciding, okay, on one side, you have venues and saying it's important to us that, we're able to restrict these tickets and we want to be able to do this. It's a license, all these other different things. He says, okay, and that's what you want to do. But on the other side, we have the other group saying it's important that we have transferability. This provides competition. We decided to give them both what they wanted. And I'm here to tell you today, the bill that is before you does the same exact thing. Not only that, there are a total of 6 states right now that have a bill that does this thing. There's been enough history going on. I think the first state did it in 2005. We did in 2017. There's been enough history that I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the one thing Ticketmaster and all the venues can't come forward and tell you is all the things they predicted that would happen that would be bad for the industry have occurred. They can't tell you that. So I'm here to tell you as another legislator, because typically that's what we do. We take a look at what has happened in another state. Has it worked? Has it not worked? I think with Connecticut, New York, Virginia, all these other different states, you got Colorado, Illinois, Utah, they've all got transferability laws. But the ones where you particularly give the option, you've given the consumer his choice if he wants to do so. But you've given the Atlanta, if they want to just only lock it in the Ticketmaster, they can do that. So that's that part of the argument that typically I would hope has helped you. In fact, by the way, our largest city in the state of Connecticut, Bridgeport, just built an amphitheater. They're expecting more acts. So acts haven't left. If you take a look at Colorado and New York in the years after they passed their bills, they didn't have acts leaving. I can't remember, it was the number per capita of sales. It hadn't gone down, it actually was doing better. So let's talk about another piece of this, because there's some things, by the way, misinformation, Mr. Chairman and committee members. That's what we received a lot of. That's what you're receiving. But the things I've shared with you, you cannot. You've heard today that Ticketmaster does not charge a fee for resale. That's not true. And that's what really gets me about this whole thing. And that's why I say it's about, for one side, it's really about control, because they are the primary ticket seller, but they have a secondary market in which they resell. And yes, they charge a fee. The same fee, kind of fees that when they come to these committee meetings, they tell you, all these other enterprises are charging fees and they're exorbitant and too much. Well, it's part of market economies and free market, I think. I think they certainly do, but they've given you that misinformation. By the way, they also have a system called Trade Desk that they promote and offer to ticket brokers for the purpose of reselling, or in their words, scalping ticks. Again, my friends, I'm telling you, at least my colleagues, I was formerly a legislator. Misinformation. I'm going to wind this up as quickly as I can, Mr. Chairman, but I'm trying to just cover a few things really quickly. They didn't deal with price gouging. We don't have to go there. We've already talked about secondary markets. Other concern I have here, or just something just to share. If you believe in free markets, or even for the venues, why is it that you have a venue that already determined I'm going to sell a ticket for $150, and I'm just going to use a wild number, and I expected to get a 20% return on my investment? At the end of the day, they're upset because rather than only allowing them to resell, someone else goes out there, creates greater competition, creates greater exposure, which members of the House of Representatives, I think you would want for the state, for here in Georgia, because the greater exposure, if you've got more tickets being sold on StubHub, Vivid Seats, Ticket Network, and all this, that's more tourists you're having coming to your place. You've created competition. It's important because if only Ticketmaster, Live Nation can set the price, even on a secondary market as a monopoly, do you think that they're going to keep their prices low? The fact that there's competition is what helps to keep the prices at a market rate that makes sense. Lastly, at the federal level, what has happened? Because you'll often hear, gee, they're buying up all the tickets. Well, there's a BOTS Act that was done federally, already to handle and take care of that. But there's also a bill that's been under consideration with the federal government. It's called the BOSS Act. We're hoping that it happens, because then you wouldn't have to pass this bill. But it's very interesting. In that bill, one of the prohibitions in there is to prohibit restrictions on transferability, the ability to resell tickets. The federal government recognized that, yes, we've got a consent decree that we're allowing Live Nation and Ticketmaster to operate under, but yet they've written letters and things because there's been problems ever since. That's what you're protecting. So I conclude with make a decision like Solomon, give everybody their way, give everybody their say. Falcons, if you only want to deal with Ticketmaster, you can do it. But if the senator here, the chairman, decides he wants a ticket that's transferable, he wants one he can give to his kids, he wants one he can give to his neighbors, he can sell, he got sick, he couldn't make it, he wants to have the option, he gets the chance to do it. Thank you, and I'm open to any questions.
All right, we got one, Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here today. I'm having a little trouble with words that I used to know the meaning of, words like free market and monopoly. Will you please explain to me what a monopoly is?
Monopoly, when a company is the only company that commands everything in an industry. Okay. Similarly to right now, Live Nation, what is it? Help me if I'm wrong here, Laura, but I think more than 90% of the artists in the world have contracts with Live Nation. Already, Ticketmaster had more than 80% of contracts with venues to do ticket sales. When they did a merger of the two of them, you basically had almost all of the artists and venues all locked up together. And you heard them say that, well, they talked about the consent decree. I think it might have been the other committee. Congress has already had a problem with them basically saying to venues, you have to use Ticketmaster in order to get these artists to come to your place. And that's what the threat of a monopoly is, when you have that much control over an industry. And right now, with the amount of venues that they control and sell tickets to, there is no real competition. And the consent decree was intended to create more competition. Monopolies have never been good for the United States of America.
A follow-up, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Is there anything that prohibits another company from opening a business like Ticketmaster?
There's nothing to prohibit you from doing it, but right now, the issue is, you've heard the Falcons, they're going to go ahead and just contract with Ticketmaster, because Ticketmaster tells them, here's my rates, here's what it is. I got the best program for you, and your fees are there. They have control over what the net price is at the end of the day.
Another follow-up, Mr. Chairman.
Hang on just a second. Mr. Boris, here in the state of Georgia, you can't be testifying on behalf of your competition.
Okay.
So you can't be bringing up Live Nation and that stuff. But since we're at that point, if you'll just take just a second, since we're at that point, you want to talk about monopoly. Is it not true that your group, National Consumer League, and all four other people that's testified on this is funded by StubHub in some sort of way?
We're not funded by StubHub at all.
Or are you not a nonprofit group?
No, we're for profit group.
Okay, I thought you referred back.
No, we are just like StubHub.
Okay.
Actually, StubHub is we're competitors.
Okay, so y'all y'all are working on the same side of everything.
Because we both believe in competition.
Okay.
I believe this, that I should be able to go out there and sell a ticket based on the fact, whatever I've already invested in my customer protections, whatever advertising things that I'm doing. And whatever profits I end up with at the end of the day, that's the best I can do. And I will compete against StubHub. I'll compete against others to do the same thing.
Okay.
The reality is, I'll go to the Braves and say, listen, give me the opportunity to do exactly what this brother is saying, this gentleman is saying over here, to compete with Ticket Network. I mean, Ticketmaster, I may give you a better deal.
Okay.
And I will actually have those tickets on networks everywhere. That's what we want. Everyone in the secondary market, we'd rather have your tickets sold on all of our platforms. And typically when you do transferable, Mr. Chairman, they are sold on all of our platforms.
Representative Smith, go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity to follow up. Now, this is a question pertaining to the free market. In fact, if you don't mind, what is your definition of the free market, I guess, before I begin?
Free market is the ability to do exactly what this gentleman over here was saying. You'll be able to set your prices, set your rules, and do the things you need to do in order to sell your product. I think I know where you're probably going to go with this, so maybe I'll try to anticipate it. Maybe I'm right or wrong. And I believe in free markets, but at the same time, the same kind of controls we do to make certain the monopolies do not take advantage of consumers, and government had to get involved to make certain the monopolies don't do that. To an extent, with free markets, there needs to be enough of a control that you allow competitive free markets. And a free market is an ecosystem that ought to be competitive and then dictates whatever the price will be. The consumer will then, based on whatever that market is, they determine. I may have decided I'm going to sell a ticket for $150, but in a free market is the consumers. Once it hits the market, consumers may decide, hey, this is valued at $200 and I'm willing to pay $200 for it. And I should be allowed to pay my $200 for it. The next person decides, hey, I'll buy it for you for $250. I should be able to sell it to them. There should be no restrictions stopping that from happening.
Okay. Follow, Mr. Chairman.
Quickly.
No, absolutely. Thank you. Inherently, I believe this is, what you guys are trying to do is un-American. Like, as another example, something that I could actually understand as far as a business, being able to come to the Capitol and advocate for something like this would be something like broadcasting companies. Whenever Fox has an issue with Comcast, whenever Fox has a issue with like a satellite company, a dish company, they don't necessarily come to us. They go to the consumers. You see it on TV, contact Dish Network because we're having an issue with negotiations. I believe that would be the first step versus coming to here and asking the government to step in while also advocating for free market.
So here's how I would respond to that. The difference in the scenario that you just presented are competitor businesses. So I agree with you. I should not be coming before the Georgia legislature to give me a competitive advantage over StubHub or Vivid Seats or someone else in the secondary market because we're competitors. However, our challenge is between the secondary market and the primary market. The primary market, which is controlled right now by one entity. One entity. Is that American? It isn't. We've got antitrust laws against monopolies. So that's the difference.
Anyway, okay. All right, we got to move on. There's so much I want to tell you, but we can get time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I welcome your questions any other time, and please gladly reach out to me or let me know. I'll reach out.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sam Owen with the Falcons.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee. I've heard a lot about the Falcons, but I think I'm the first one speaking for the Falcons today. And let me first start by saying this should all be about the fans. It should all be about the artists. It should be about the teams, not about out-of-state folks that are the new version of scalpers. They may wear dresses, they may wear suits, but what they're seeking to do increases the prices of tickets, doesn't decrease the price of tickets. And let's just talk a second about the Falcons. When you buy a Falcons ticket, nothing stops you from transferring that ticket. Zero. So as has been referenced before by the representative for the Braves, this is trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. The Falcons don't do anything that restricts your ability to transfer the tickets. It does provide protections the way the current system works, whether it's a safety criminal scenario, whether it's a section that may be non-alcohol use, so it's family friendly. Query what this bill would do to that. There is a BOTS Act, as has been referenced before. Let me suggest to you that you can pass all the bills you want. It doesn't mean that there's enforcement, and there overtly is not enforcement in that area throughout this nation at this time. You know, when an artist, it was funny, and I don't represent Elton John, so I represent the Falcons, but it was sort of amusing. I got an email this morning. It says from Elton John, but I'm thinking, Mr. Chairman, it's not from Elton John. But I am old enough that I appreciate Elton John, and I've gone to numerous of his concerts. So at 9:01 this morning, I got an email. Are you getting the most out of the Rocket Club? You're one of Elton's top Rocket Club members. I didn't know that. But having said that, it gives me access to tickets to his concerts before they're on general sale. I want that. I'm not there to sell it. I'm not there to make a bunch of money scalping it. I like the performer. And I like the fact that numerous artists give people that are in their fan clubs the ability to buy those tickets in advance. Query what this bill does for that. Is the artist still going to come to Georgia? Or is the artist going to say, if you're going to buy out my tickets to scalp them, I can go to Nashville, I can go to Chattanooga, I can go to Knoxville. What changes will occur as a result of that? As you know, the state, or really the Falcons, are leading the effort to bring the World Cup to Atlanta. If successful, that would occupy about 9 or 10 months of the Georgia World Congress Center. separate from the games. If this bill's passed, what does that do to our effort? What does that do to organizations that don't like what this bill would do? And it's not just about team ownership. What happens to the hotels, the restaurants, the folks on the street selling the t-shirts? Who are we hurting and who are we helping? This bill seeks to help people in other states with modern day scalping. Let me end on this one thought that frankly came up in the other hearing this morning in the Senate, but has not come up in this hearing. See, the amendment for UGA is really, really important for you to understand. StubHub is the exclusive provider for those tickets. And the StubHub representative referenced that this morning. So StubHub and the like are telling you they need this bill, except when it's their relationship. So line 67 of this bill that gives the out to the NCAA says, we're all for this bill until it hurts our pocket. So StubHub has overtly requested an exemption for their client. That smells. That's not good government. That's not good policy. That outright smells. And the chairman of the Senate committee overtly asked questions about that. Whenever anyone goes up to you and says, we want a legal change to level the field, but please don't do it where we have an advantage, I'm sorry, that's just not proper and that's not professional. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate the ability to make comments today.
Thank you. I did have a question about that.
Yes,
about
sir.
the UGA carve out and the legal side of that. And I
Imagine
appreciate
why
you.
you'd ask me that question.
Yeah, I was glad you kind of addressed that. But okay, thank you very much.
But let me suggest, Mr. Chairman, if possible, that is a huge gaping hole for a lawyer to file suit. That is a huge gaping hole. When you choose the winners and losers, when you say we're going to do X, except in essence for UGA, you've made my legal life much, much easier. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so our last presenter, Peter Conlon. With the Live Nation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm
Good to see
Peter
you
Conlon, currently president of Live Nation, Georgia. Wanted to speak against this legislation and tell you that specifically, I think it's very harmful to the industry and to the consumer. Let me clarify a few things. First of all, majority of tickets are transferable. You can transfer them through Ticketmaster. You can sell them through Ticketmaster at no fee. We're talking here today about a very small percentage of tickets that the artist or a team has wanted to set aside as non-transferable, and it's for a reason. On our side, what it is that since this business has become more electronic, scalpers are now able to use bots to go onto the system when tickets are put on sale and grab the best tickets that then they can resell. If it's non-transferable, that is not a ticket they want to buy because they can't sell it. So they're now trying to open additional inventory, and in most cases, the best inventory that they can resell for an inflated and actually gouging price. The bots are still very active. We run against it constantly. We had a show last week we put on sale at the Roxy, 4,000 tickets. The bots grabbed the 500 best tickets in the first few minutes of the on sale. Luckily, Ticketmaster was able to go back in and see that they were all the same IP address and clean up most of them. But the artist sets the non-transferability, not us. It's an artist who tells us, I want these seats protected for my fans. If they're $100, I want to make sure they're sold for 100 and nobody's in there speculating on them. That's the whole reason of the non-transferability. The rest of all the other tickets are transferable. You can do whatever you want with them. So artists are trying to protect their fans from being gouged. Whenever I hear this fair market price, I love it because it's a price arbitrarily set by the scalpers to gouge based on a certain location of a ticket. They know if you're in the third row and it's Elton John, you know what, I'm going to get $2,500 for that ticket for some fan, you know, because he's got money and he wants to be up close. Well, Elton probably only sold it for $350. So Elton's not sharing in that money. I'm not sharing in that money. The building isn't sharing in that money. It's some company located somewhere out of the state that's going to make a lot of money on our backs. I've had shows where I financed the show and I've lost money, yet scalpers have made a tremendous amount of money because they had some great seats that they paid face value for and flipped around for 10 times their value. As far as the competition level goes, let me tell you, this business is more competitive than I've ever seen it. There's more competition between promoters and ticketing services. In Atlanta here, you have Pacquiao at the Fox Theater. You have Pacquiao over at Georgia Tech. You have Access up in Gwinnett. So there's a lot of other ticketing services. Live Nation, you know, we own Ticketmaster, but Ticketmaster, look, I think they're the best ticketing service in the world. They have a great investment in some of the best equipment. And one of their biggest features is their marketing ability, where they're able to market better than anybody. So again, today, this is a law written by the scalpers for the scalpers to get more inventory to scalp. And that's all it is. So I hope you'll vote against this bill. And if anybody has any questions.
I do. They got one. I talked to a well-known artist last week, and he explained to me about, I asked him, I said, you know, here's the bill, what's going on with it? And he explained to me that some of the states had done this, that had messed them up in the last couple of years on their ticket count, or in the last couple of months on ticket count, and their merchandise and their concessions, because he said it looked like all of them were sold the way they went in there and grabbed all these tickets. It looked like it was all sold. And then right before the concert, they dumped them. So it messed up everything on there. So they lost money because they get revenue off every ticket sold. They had too much food there, which people wasn't there because they dumped them. They had merchandise there that people wasn't there to buy. Is that kind of what happens?
Yeah, in some cases it does. They'll hold them and then they'll try to dump them right before, and you end up with good seats competing with their lesser seats at the last minute, and also inventory you weren't counting on. Yeah, if they didn't, you know, sometimes they aren't right about what they think is a really hot show, right, and they overbuy it.
Sure.
So that does happen, but that's when somebody who isn't a stakeholder gets involved in the process. You know, none of the people testifying today, their scalpers, have offices here in Georgia. I do, the Hawks do, the Falcons do, the Braves have major capital investments, thousands of people who work for us. And these are some companies out of state who are just trying to get more inventory that they can sell at a gouging price.
Okay. All right. We got any questions online? Peter Cole. Okay. Well,
thank you very much.
You got Mr. Derek got a question for you.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. To the presenter, what could we do as lawmakers to create an environment that will not create a us versus them? Let me just give you a little bit of perspective. Because during my 22 years in the Navy, it was companies like the Braves, the Hawks, gave military members non-transferable tickets. Sometimes life happens. But after my 22 years in the Navy, as I spent 18 months as a concert promoter. And so I sort of see this situation from both sides. One, that have been a recipient of organizations doing phenomenal work to help promote and give individuals in the various communities an opportunity to come to a Braves game or to a Hawks game. But then as a concert promoter, my number one enemy were scalpers, right? I lost $107,000, right? Tough pill to swallow. So from your perspective, what would be a happy medium, right? That's the question that I'm asking, because we tend to, in these kind of situations, we tend to always do the us versus them. But I would like to get us to more of a, what can we do to make sure that we don't have unintended consequences to major organizations in the state of Georgia, such as the Hawks and the Braves, that are doing phenomenal work in our state, but at the same time, not create a win for those who go and purchase a lot of tickets and sell those tickets for 2 or 3 times the market price. What would you suggest to us?
It's actually a pretty simple answer. Just as Earl said, you don't have to do anything. The way it currently stands, the majority of tickets are transferable. The only ones that aren't are ones like you mentioned for maybe service personnel, or if the artist wants to protect the best seats. That's all this legislation is trying to do, is to open up any of those areas where no one can protect seats anymore. They wouldn't be able to give servicemen seats because they would be afraid to put out a $20 ticket or a free ticket because it'll end up on StubHub for $50. Okay.
Right. So that would be, not to interrupt you, but that would be an unintended consequence that I don't want us to do.
Right. So right now it's covered because they can make that a non-transferable ticket. So therefore StubHub can't get it. That's what they're trying to do now, is take that wall down. They want to get into all the inventory. That's all this is about. It's not about an even playing field. It's about the fact that they see electronically the best seats, the ones they can really gouge on, are being protected by the artist, not by Live Nation, not by Ticketmaster. Elton John or whatever artist will say, I want these first 20 rows non-transferable so my fans get them. Okay. And the fan knows when they buy them, it says it's non-transferable. So it's right now, best way to answer your question, sir, is to just not do anything.
All right. So, Mr. Chairman, if I may. So from an education standpoint, so when Georgians purchase their ticket, they don't know if it's a non-transferable ticket or not.
Yes, they do.
Is there something that clearly,
Says when they buy it, it's non-transferable.
Because I purchased a ticket, it's just a QR code. It doesn't say transferable or non-transferable.
It should say when you're on Ticketmaster site, it'll tell you that it's non-transferable. Now, if it's transferable, it won't say anything. But if it's not transferable, it'll tell you.
For number 23, Representative Williams.
I just think this has a lot more work that needs to be done at this time. I just make a motion, do not pass.
Okay, I got a motion on the table. Do we have a second? Got a second? All right. Got a motion, do not pass. All in favor of the bills, say yes. All right, who's in favor? Who wants to vote no? No.
Earhart, no.
Are we voting on do not pass, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
That's my question.
Yes, we're voting. Yes. All right, we're voting on the bill. All right, so how do we do? All in favor of do not pass. Now it'd be the proper time to say yes.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, and that when we're voting on
Yes.
LC number 365229S. Yes. And does it have any of this? No. Okay. All right. Voting bill does not pass. Well, I think we've had a spirited debate, and I want to thank everybody for coming. And thank y'all and members here. We got lunch in room 612 if anybody wants to join us.